Good morning. Welcome back to Texas Teachers for Texas Teachers.
Today's episode is what you know about teaching strategies.
Writing strategies are important in the classroom because they help students develop critical thinking, organization, and communication skills.
I'm Jaden and I'm a dance education major and I chose to do mind mapping. So with mind mapping, you kind of give a central idea that you write it down, or it could be on a piece of paper. You can put it on like the whiteboard or something like that, a central idea. And from there, I will allow my students to go up to the board or put it on their piece of paper and branch out ideas from that, and eventually those ideas will be branched out. And in my content area, this can kind of look like an introduction to a unit, to the class, whatever it may be, and I can write dance as the central idea, or I can write jazz as the central idea. From there can be an idea from dance of you perform it, or there's different genres. From there, even more can be branched out. We can have students take turns. We can have them kind of pass the marker down and branch those ideas from there. And it's just a good way to kind of either gauge where their thinking is on a topic. You can also use it as a learning strategy. And what did they know in the beginning, and what did they learn towards the end? And it's just a really good way to kind of see growth or just gauge where they are. And how would y'all use mind mapping in y'all's content areas?
So one way I can think of is just to get students so that they're actually using their brain interpreting music, is maybe I can ask them, how could a composer make a piece sound happy, and then they can mind map out different ways to make a piece sound happier. So they can write like major chords, bright sounding chords, fast music, arpeggio passages, and stuff like that. Just for them to interpret music in their own way, not just like me telling them this is how you do this. They can use creativity to come up with it on their own. Y'all, I have no idea how they're all going to use it.
I was just going to say something. So how I would use it in physical education is I would ask them about what they know about a sport, and then they will outline what they know, and then we'll go from there. And then it's just a way of reflect back on what they know about a specific sport.
Yeah, I would do the same. You could do it before and after the lesson. Just compare what they have learned.
You could kid into a mind map.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so my strategy is called Post-it note critique. The way this strategy is typically done is students can put their work up around the room, and then groups of students will go around the room and critique work like art or maybe their essay. And they write a sticky note, and they can only write up to 3 constructive, respectful words to critique the work. And the words should be concise, direct, and the strategy is good because it helps students practice interpretation and analysis. So I would use this a little bit differently in my classroom because it just wouldn't work with performing. So I kind of flip this, like in music we do a lot of performing and getting critiqued, like that's pretty normal. So the way I would do this is I would have one student come to the front of the class, and then student sitting down have their own sticky notes. So they would write 3 critiques, except it would be, we also do something called compliment sandwich. I'm sure other content areas do this. So 2 critiques and a compliment, or 2 compliments and a critique, and just whatever they think the player could improve on, what they think they're doing good with. And then just to keep this organized, I would have them give the sticky notes to me. I would sift through them, make sure everything's like respectful, and then give them to the player. And then and they can go through and read everything and internalize that. How would you guys use post-it note critique in your classroom?
I would use it similar to what you said, kind of critique it a little bit, not just like sticky notes and then walk around the class. I would have someone like do a movement and either give 2 compliments and a of similar to yours.
I feel like I took it and made it like its own thing. It's
Yeah.
not even sticky note critique anymore. It's like it is, but
Yeah, no, it's like still a writing strategy.
And then for physical education, I could also use it as a form of feedback, just so I can let my students know what they did wrong, and just to I see it as a form of motivation for them to like not feel down if they didn't do it right.
I think for dance, I would use it very similar to you. We could have groups perform, and while they're performing, the others are sitting there writing those respectful critiques. I would as well sift through them because you never know with
Yeah.
students, and just to make sure that everything is correct and there's not wrong feedback given as well.
Okay, so in a physical education class, I did an exit ticket. So it is a form of reflection and assessment. You can use this, you can modify it many ways, but I did an example of a exit ticket. This is a simple exit ticket. It's just lets the students list the cues and then ask them how they feel about it and what they learn about the skill. And this just could be a form for them to understand the concept and to just reflect on it. And it's a form of self-assessment, so it helps them rate themselves and motivate themselves before they begin the next lesson. And also it's a form of feedback, so I can write down at the end, I can write down if they were feeling not so good that day. I would just say how it's to motivate them, a form of motivation, so they can feel better and yeah. And how would y'all use this for y'all's commentary?
I think for dance, it'd be a little difficult to do an exit ticket just because we have to do so much in such little time, depending on the teacher or the class in the school. But I do like the steps that you gave. I definitely think if I taught a skill that day, I could say, okay, what are the steps to get into that certain skill? What did you learn from this today? Just to kind of gauge where they were for that day and get them writing. It could even be a little kind of online exit ticket as well.
I'm also in physical education, and I would use it because we go over cues a lot for movement, so I would use that to know students' knowledge of those cues, and also just use it for feedback as well, and like how they're feeling that day, how they're feeling about the movements, and if it's easy, if it's hard.
yeah, I think the exit ticket would be really good in music, especially 6th grade, like first month of learning the instrument, because I can write on there like what's the fingering for this note, or like what is this note on the staff, because that first month or so in that first month or so or semester or so of them like learning all this information, I would want to assess them and like make sure they're actually internalizing everything. And the way I would do the exit ticket is I don't think I would take it for a grade, maybe just a completion grade, because I don't want them to be scared of the exit ticket. I just want to know where they're at.
So for my writing strategy, I'm doing Quick Write. It is basically any shorts or like any prompts that get students thinking about a topic or a theme. It allows students to think, helps them organize their understandings, and provides a baseline of knowledge for a lesson. So it can use prior knowledge, synthesize learning from that day, or help students organize the lesson like before and after, during. So how I would use it, I would identify a purpose for the writing, provide a prompt that gives students something to write about, and then provide a follow-up activity to have students do something with their writing, so it can pair up or you can share it with the classroom. How I would use it in physical education, it could be used as like a little warm-up, like give them a prompt about, say, like a sport or just a lesson, and they can write what they know about it or how they feel about it. It can also just be like an activity for the day or an exit ticket, like Marvin was talking about, just in the lesson. They can also write about how to set up and obtain health and personal goals, so they can write it at the beginning of the school year and see what their goals are, and they can go back to it at the end of the year, see if they achieved any of those goals, and they can share it with the class. How would you guys use this in your content areas?
What I'll do in a physical education class, I would, like how she said, I believe that this method could be used for if I want to introduce nutrition and health. So I'll develop a plan where they, over 6 weeks, let's just say, and over their goals, so every week they'll eat a certain amount of food, like dairy and protein, and they'll just keep track of it. And I'll be able to give them feedback over their goals, and it's just a way of them to keep track and just helps them write, and just makes them develop a better lifestyle.
Yeah, I like the goals. I like that a lot because there's so much that students can learn and do in just like a semester or year. And if, sometimes they forget how far they come. And so if they're like, the beginning of the semester writing out their goals and then by the end of it seeing like how close or how much more they did in those goals, I think that's really good for them. Especially assessing it frequently throughout the semester. I like that.
I definitely agree with the assessing throughout the semester and getting those goals out there. It's just a good way, in my content area, I would really like to see where they feel their growth is and like how they feel rather than can they do this, can they do that. Like I want the class to be enjoyable, so like having that feedback as a teacher, like you said in a past podcast, that we always need to be learners and students as well. So I think kind of getting that feedback from your students on where they feel they are and their goals throughout the semester.
So as y'all can see, we learn many different strategies. We can implement many different writing strategies in different content areas. But we're gonna end up this podcast with the quote, and the quote is about writing, and the quote is, "Writing isn't about perfection, it's about finding your voice, shaping your thoughts, and learning to communicate with clarity and purpose. Great writing strategies don't just teach students what to say, they empower them to discover how to say it." So what does that mean to y'all?
I like that. I also think writing should be really personal. You shouldn't be writing all the time expecting someone else to read it, especially if you journal. It should just be for you. And I think a lot of these strategies are about like how we can assess students, but it's also them assessing themselves and then learning how to do that. Like I like that quote.
Yeah, I do like that quote. I think writing is a form of expression, and as a teacher, you always want your students' feedback and how they're feeling to understand, and you want them to be comfortable with what they're learning and what they're writing. So I like that quote.
I like that quote as well. I think a big misconception with students and with teachers in different content areas is that writing is just for English language arts, and it truly can be implemented in every content area. And I think that's a really good point that we've made in all of our different strategies we brought to the table today. And to kind of change the stigma around writing, that it's not just in a class and it's not just a boring class, like it's a fun class, and it can be fun within your other passions, whether it's PE, music, or dance, whatever it may be. So
Yeah, so pretty much what it means is that writing could be used in many different forms, and it just helps students develop unique voices and helps to structure their ideas and communicate meaningfully.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
watching Access